Aha!
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. All right. There.
Hold. Hold. Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We're a little bit less than halfway in, which means that I think I get to see this. Okay. And it's an easy one. It's an easy one. And if you misread Marozzo, you'll think it's the first one. Because he talks about how to do this parry, but it's embedded in a chapter of his first play. Right? So really, this is the first play. This is a case where Moncellino's clear writing comes in handy. Because Moncellino's first two plays are, they tap low, so I do this. The second is, I provoke them and I do that. Right? And then nothing he says is really all that interesting. It's kind of a retread of general principles. Okay, now, one quick note. Can I borrow it? I just want to come to a mind. When you make your parry, again, just like the thrust comes in over my hand, try to make sure your parry is getting over there, close to the hand. Okay, you can see that she's giving me pressure there, and I just need to use leverage to win that. And then what we're going to see one of these plays that come across again is that if her pressure is too strong, that's when they cut. Right? Because we're too deep to cavazione, so I'm going to use the other end of this because I can. Okay? Whereas with a spear, I'd just be hitting her with a stick. Now, a stick can hit really frickin' hard, but this is a relatively small rotation, and we're fighting with partisans or those sorts of weapons. We're probably wearing some kind of armor at this point. Okay? All right, so now, the second play looks like this. I want you to guys tell me what's different. So face me. Okay? And the second play looks like this.
You drop your point after
One
the
more.
step.
Okay?
You enter
Don't worry
guard
about
after the
speed.
step.
What?
You entered guard after the step completed.
I did? Well, what else did I do?
Just protecting your
And
hand.
moved it.
My hands protected? Yeah. I opened, so everybody saw this, but what I actually want the opponent to see is this. So let me show you the difference. Just line up right with me in guard. So. That's what we were just working on, right? He doesn't have a really good, clear target, other than just coming in over my hand. Right, so now,
I have an inside target.
you have an inside target, inside low target most likely, right? So what I'm trying to do is, in the play two, so play one, which is, like I said, is kind of embedded in the general direction of how to parry. Play one is, here's the universal parry. Now imagine each student says, but Maestro, what if they won't attack? Well, then I enter and watch my hips. I open the line so it looks wrong, right? I'm making this now, it's not an obvious provocation. I gave them the obvious provocation, right? They were too smart. So now I give them a provocation that looks like a failure, right? Now remember when we practiced doing that low thrust yesterday? You can thrust low while protecting your head. So go ahead and just stick me, I'm not gonna defend. Yeah, good. That's what I'm looking for, right? As he says, he may go for your leg or your lower or your abdomen, okay? All right, so I've come into guard, he doesn't take the bait. So I open it up by turning my hips. Why do I need the hips? So that I've got structure to parry with. This was another sucker punch. I know there's only one clear target, and I know if I did this right, he thinks I failed. And he's gonna go, ah, and fire. Especially if he's doing that with a slide thrust, that's gonna be hit by my body knocking it down towards the ground. With a carry thrust, you still have control of his weapon. But here, go ahead and thrust. Right, see how wide that's starting to go? Okay, now we're doing carried thrusts. So you're gonna stab them in the abdomen. Not the real target. The real target is gonna be down into the hip socket here or the groin. Nobody needs to take on the last day a whole bunch of thrusts into the jump. The hip socket, and explain why, because in the poleaxe material, the Anonimo uses this a lot. If I thrust into the hip socket, even if the armor's there, watch what happens to my butt. it pushes out over my rear balance point, which means it now needs a third leg to support it. That doesn't exist. This is the leg that would have to step to catch me, but it's been hyperextended. So what happens? I fall. Okay? You're in full harness, that's how I push you down. It's by targeting here. So there's a built-in hidden thing right into play, which is how to take someone down. He doesn't call it out. The Anonimo does with the pole axe. Okay? But there it is. That's what I like about these arts. There's always redundancies built in. So Maestro, you can picture the lesson, but what if he's wearing a full cuirass with tassets and I can't puncture through with my Partizan? Well, then you just let it hook in the armor and you drive him over with your carried thrust. Okay? So, now here's how we're gonna do it. Okay, so I come in, doesn't take it. Nope. You're like, oh, no, no. So, again, my hips turn out by rotating my rear heel. He thrusts low. I turn my hips back into his weapon, and now it's like a piston. Right? That's where it would go. You're gonna put it here. I'm doing this very lightly because there's nothing on the end of this weapon. Right? Back into guard. Double pass back. Got her? All right, feel like you guys can handle this one, just going to it? Okay, cool. The next one we might have to do in rank.
To teach them all the times. Teaches hooking, teaches striking, teaches thrusting. But it also means that it gives you counters that Marozzo never does. That's cool. Because it gives you counter, it gives you a counter to the collar throw. It also shows you the collar throw everybody does. The Anonimo, when we do that with me, by pushing you aside, we want to come in with that rear end of thumb. Start stepping in, pushing aside, so you're going to come in with your heel, throw me.
Oh.
Yeah. Right here. Just swing this. Your weapon or your elbow.
Yeah.
Guess who's got the throne?
Yeah.
Not quite. This is still a bad target, right?
Anywhere that you can counter to that.
No?
It's right in there.
Just opens up.
I mean, it's one of those things where every time somebody starts using polos with
It's got a heel.
it's like don't forget your quarters.
It's a spear with benefits. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the trick is learning to swing that propeller through the opening arm and not get stuck. But, so again, we come to something,
Yeah.
I'm pushing through, you start to step in,
Yeah.
and now I have that, and I could crowd in, or I could shorten this since he says I should have a spike.
Of course, yeah.
Right? So you try to
Yeah.
So you're pushing through.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm coming in. Into the gap, exactly. And if I'm coming in really hard with a shorter weapon, just strike right behind the back of my elbow. Take the back of my elbow. And it's an elbow push.
Yeah.
And now in my harness, you got all those openings. You lost the throw, but I can't see. Okay?
Oh,
So that's,
I mean, even.
right. And so the other way to look at it is the pole axe gives you throws and counter throws. Then if you never plan on using a pole axe, you've got a great little set of things. Plus, if someone wants to do that throw, it's a play where you're supposed to push the spike of the weapon down. You can't throw. So you're pushing my weapon down.
Little challenge,
and I go
little
boom. Yep.
action.
Yeah, and so I just hit this, and that gives me a tempo to now fight out of it. And that has actually happened to me accidentally while doing Armored Deep, where my axe had just caught in the ground. I just ended up pivoting around it. It wasn't pretty.
How much do you think that that's actually how it was discovered?
Oh, I absolutely do.
And they're like, I had this brilliant technique.
Yeah, by the way, this wasn't my best moment,
Yeah.
but it saved my
And
fucking
everyone's
life.
like, how did he figure it out? It's like an accident saved my life.
Accident saved my life. Yeah. So anyway, so my point is that even for people who don't do like a full harness or anything, it doesn't matter. Go through the lessons.
I'm doing that, like, for example, like, I'm not a huge fan of, like, sword and armor, like, it's not a personal interest. These two want to get into harness. So, that's enough for them to be fired up at it, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna get you prepared for that. Like, you gotta buy the kit and do the work.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And they'll bring that back in and you'll figure out how to perform the unarmored.
Yeah.
And that's why I told them, like, you don't have to do all of it. But you do have to create a network of people to control that.
By the way, there's another reason to trick. This is a little fun bit that we see in the dueling codes. Another reason to trick you into throwing that blow, even though I set the whole thing up. Remember, I was the agent, which means I'm the one, the accuser. If this doesn't go the way I thought, I could always argue the duel was illegitimate, because you struck first. I told you, judicial duels, all dueling in Italy, is about paperwork. The French missed this memo and just started murdering each other by the thousands. The Italians, the whole point is to make the challenge and then figure out how to get out of it. Okay, so, all right. And as far as we can tell, the Germans almost never actually fight them, despite having all these books. Very few actual documented duels going on in Germany in these periods. So, okay. Now, we're gonna do something a little more fun. Eric, can I borrow you?
Yes.
And I need my partisan back that has a head.
Someone is borrowing one.
Thank you. Can I just hand it to you? Yeah. Oh, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna use a cut, and this plays right off of what I taught you spontaneously yesterday. Okay? But there's a slight difference. So in that play with the leg, I go 1, 2, 3. What's different? Took 3 steps, but how does that change things?
Yeah, feet are opposite instead of.
I'm discordant, exactly, I'm discordant. Now again, this is by design, but think about a student. So he taught them this universal parry. This works against everything. But Maestro, what if they won't take the bait? I open my guard a little. Maestro, what if they won't take that? Or what if it doesn't work and you've retreated? Oh, well then I slip back and I make it discordant so that he can see that whole flank, right? I'd like give him a bigger provocation. Now he's like, oh, he's off balance, the whole fucking thing is wrong, right? Because I just told you yesterday, like, don't do that. Now, here's the important part, right? 1, 2, 3. I've got to have that toe off on that angle. If I do this, I'm going to screw up my defense. Structure matters. These weapons are much heavier than what you're playing with. Okay? So I want Eric to see that, and he's like, oh, you stupid bastard. Right? And I took 3 steps, so I'm further out of measure. So he's going to make a strong, I'm going to just eat this one, okay? He's going to make a strong thrust into my right side with a punta portata. Okay, so carry thrust. Boom, right? So he's got to reach a little bit, which is going to give me some time. And he's going to come in hard for that side. So what do? I pass as I make this cover. Now that brings me in really deep. I just drove this in. Those of you who were in my sword class yesterday, we just did exchange of thrusts. Right? Now, boom. Either he successfully parries, which he would do perfect. Okay? He could do by lifting his hand. He could do it by pushing his heel out. Right? Nope, the heel. There's nowhere to go with that. No, just boom, off your hip. Yeah. So right back into, easier, go right back into the low guard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So heels off the thigh, right? I don't care which instance it is, because I'm going to lift my weapon. But I'm not lifting my weapon. I'm about to cut. So here's how this plays out. So I'm here, he attacks. Boom. Here comes the thrust. He's got to clear his entire body. Great. Right? Now remember, I'm wearing armor. He's got no power to do anything right now. I am cutting him through the groin with my body, or the inside of the leg. Particularly awful thing that happens with the bill is the hook of the bill goes to the inside of the knee, ribs. Okay, but this is just a partisan. So there's my cut, right? Now, I still think about that thing. He's probably trying to deal with that. So once I finish the cut, I push the thrust into him and fly out with a cambiato. Why? Because his attack is likely to come back around to the other side. Because I've disrupted him on this side. So I finish with the guard, and now I've switched leads. Okay?
So you're clearing space by retreating and pushing him further.
Yes, doing what we call punta firma, where I use you as the thing to push off of with my thrust. Those of you using the steel spears, this will work great. Your partners are not going to like you. Okay? So it works great. We do it in our harness all the time, and it's great. Without the harness, it's going to really hurt. It's because you're corkscrewing a thrust into them as you push off with your body weight. Okay? So if you're using the steel spear, you're just going to fake it. So I'm going to show you guys again how to do this whole thing. So I've retreated, right? They come in for the attack. Pass. thrust, cut. His arms are high there. You might make it a cut. Remember, it's the inside of the armor there, isn't it? Put that thrust into the throat. Eric's not wearing his mask, so I'm going to simulate it by thrusting past him. Now, Greg, what if he doesn't do that? What if he parries instead by going, whoa, which is another likely parry, right? Okay, so you got that one. You're just going to clear me to your right. Okay. Oops. Yeah. I'm the bad guy. I'm the good guy. Boom. That's exactly what we did yesterday, isn't it? Okay. Now it's even easier. 100% chance the weapon comes from there, right? There's no place else it can go. It's not in any way near me. I don't have to worry about my armor defending. I could be unarmored, and I'm defended by space. But I'm still going to be defended by closing that line. And now, the next lesson is, but Maestro, I've got the other hand forward. See how these all build off of each other? All right, so solo looks like this. Toes on the diagonal. Okay, let's try that one together solo a couple times.
Greg,
Yeah.
are you so when you go for the cut, are you circling it up almost?
Yes.
Or you're just cutting straight
Yes.
across?
Well, so it depends on what they're wearing, right?
Right.
I could cut it low, and if I cut it low and it goes wide, and here, right? You put me aside. I brace it in my hip girdle, and I hit him with a tondo in Bologna speak, and Mizano and Fiore speak, right into the groin, right? Which will then rip into the inside of the leg. If I'm like, there's a lot of armor there, which I should have noticed before we started this whole crazy thing, right? This is not the time to make that decision. So instead, I've cleared, I thrust. It's an uppercut. Boom, uppercut into the armpit, into the inside of the arm. Oh, I found the armpit with my weapon. Hopefully it sheared through the mail, but I don't care. That will.
You don't have to escape with that. You're pushing inches to do it.
Oh yeah, you saw this thing flex, right? It's horrific, because I'm using my whole body to push this thing through him as I push off into retreat. They do this with, the Adonamo does this with Solo Sword all the frickin' time. Boom, into his retreat, okay? So, all right, so let's try this together. Wrong foot forward, so start in the guard. Take one passing step back, let your right foot be turned out at a 45 degree. Go into that universal parry position, Yalo Corno. Pole arm is still, head is still to your left. They attack. Pass in. Thrust. It's broken to your left. Step out with your right on a slight diagonal. Give them the cut. Push the weapon through your hand as you turn towards it. Pivot around the weapon and fly out. Okay? Now let's try it again. And this is where Marozzo sneaks in, both slide thrusts in the middle of a fight in the short measure and hand changes, right? He's already taught the slide thrust, but now he's teaching it to retreat under. So step back, pass in, parrying, thrust, it's broken, cut, push the thrust, so one hand meets the other, pass one hand around the other, and slide. And the reason we keep these hands close to each other for all this is so that when I work gauntlets, I don't bunkle this and drop it. Only good thing in the whole world Spec Heavy gloves are, Spec Heavies are good for, is simulating learning how to do this when you have no dexterity. Because I can't think of any hand protection on the earth less dexterous. Okay, so for that, they're great. Okay. So absolutely, that's the sort of skill that once you learn it, you practice with your sparring gloves, whatever they are.
Spadone, when it comes to long swords, every time this plays with it.
Very good.
That just looks gnarly.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I'm being really just. All right, so boom. I see.
Exactly. He drops that hand. Whoa.
Yeah. Yes.
That little push would be super flexible. Kind of sucks. I think taking it.
Open yourself up. Yeah. Open it up more. You want to give me a target?
Yeah, because you may also slide off the bib.
I cast that target. You carry.
But on the bib, especially the bib over
Oh no,
the
I'm bound. Yeah. Boom. And now, give me a good push. Free kill. Yeah. I completely missed the target.
No, it's a lot. Good. Now, so, yes.
Make that cut. I want you to pop your right hand back down to your.
The other side, I do a throw. Just that one play has probably 20 different variations I could think of off the top. We don't need to do any of that today. I'm going to try to save the last 5 minutes to talk about how you would integrate this into your training. So let's just move on real quick, and we're going to do at least the first part of this last sequence. This last sequence I'm going to show you is the longest. It would take me the full rest of the class just to really teach it and then go train it. So I'm going to at least teach the first part of it, okay? Can I borrow you? Who is that in there?
Dave?
Oh yeah, it's my Floridian friend, okay. All right, so, okay, so, Dane is still left-hand lead. We now have an asymmetrical crossing, right? Now finally, I'm gonna truly be the agente. Not paziente, right? And, oh, by the way, the previous plays is a great way, if you're the patient in the duel, to trick them into making that opening attack in exactly a way you want it, right? So I can use this to manipulate the hell out of somebody. Now, Marozzo for the first time is gonna be like, look, you just gotta go get this guy, right? I wanna be aggressive. So that whole symmetrical guards, now I'm asymmetrical, right? So interesting thought, isn't it? Okay, so what do? I come in and I fire that thrust, right? Now, here's the cool thing. Let's say he's really smart and he took that universal parry position. Yeah, oh, he's good. Okay, great. So I fire that thrust. Excellent. So when I fire that thrust, rewind, because I'm gonna need to show you. Okay, so that's my action. Now you're gonna do the parry this time. Okay, so I come in. Right? But we're not done. Right? That's the first part. This play is fascinating because it has multiple parts. Okay? Even cooler, there's two ways to do it. So say that's his parry, and I come in and he's strong enough that I realize, shit, it's too big a motion even with a foot slip to get around it, right? So then I could step out and cut his arm on the inside. Right? I just go, oh, we're gonna go this way? All right, well this thing has an edge, so we'll go that way. And then I'll thrust you. So, much like a honey badger, Marozzo don't care. Okay? People still know the honey badger joke, right? I haven't gotten that old. All right. With some of my like 20-somethings come into class, I'm starting to get a little panic.
And then were you weapon checking on the way out?
I am.
With the beat?
I'm always weapon checking. So I don't even have to use a beat, but I will show you what, only because Marozzo's gonna give me a little more to the sequence. So I come in, right? I cut, I thrust, but I turn that hand out like that parry I showed you, and that's my check. Now if I was really start to worry about it, I had those hooks, I could continue to do more, okay? So, my good friend Tom Quaid did that about 5 times to me the last time we fenced, that exact thing you just saw there. So I know it works because my skull knows it works, okay? So I come in, boom, great. So he parries a little bit early, or he keeps his point down because he wants to thread in my face. Yeah. Okay. That's hard to do, Greg. It's 2 steps. So watch. This weapon's long, right? He parries. You gotta parry me, buddy. Good. I literally slipped the foot and cut the thumb. Totally counterintuitive, except that I have a weapon that weighs 5 pounds and that's his thumb. And then I'll reclaim my guard. Okay? So how should we do it today, Greg? In interest of time, let's do it a slightly simpler way. Let's do the one where I can keep moving to the inside. Okay? It's a little more elegant too, I think. Okay. Got that?
That's specifically right hand forward, right?
Right hand forward. So we have an asymmetric. Now, if he was right hand forward, I'd do this left hand forward. So what's Marozzo teaching here? F them up by having an asymmetrical lead. Right? But he also tells us that cutting weapons favor the dominant hand forward. And I'm planning on using cuts in here if this thrust doesn't fail. Specifically thinking about the cut here. All right, so last time. Again, they can do it from the universal parry position, they can do it from the basic guard. I don't care. Okay, that makes sense? Yep. Cool. And then I'll show you what happens if he parries that. It kind of gets worse. Okay? All right. Okay, this is a fussy one. Okay, so get on guard. Who's attacking? Okay. Nope. Yeah, so you're attacking. You're the right side.
Threaten me with a blade because I'll get close to do it again. If I'm too close and you threaten me, this isn't really gonna work anymore.
Sure, that's a good side.
It's hard, especially if you get caught up on this. You can own yourself.
No, switch your knees together, right hand.
You can screw yourself up.
You have to unwrap. You're mirrored, but now. Okay, great. So now you're gonna step to your left while cutting him right across the forearm. And give him a thrust while you back up. Yes. Good. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, great. It's like a
Alright. So it's either up, down.
or if they've already captured your weapon, you just step the other way and slice it. And you slice your point into line. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Oh, true. I need to. Yeah. Can we do that one more time?
Yeah. And you're surprised.
Hack. One more time. Not having a blade does make it different. Yeah. Boom. Boom. There. Boom. And sweet. All right. Sides. Still threatening you, so give me yes. Yeah. That's it. Boom. Yes. There it is. Another. Sweet.
Pretty.
It's almost right in with the
Right.
Go ahead. Push. Yes.
Nice.
Now, well, I hope that's true, because I hope that means you're having a good time. As I said in my first class, I find that if polearms aren't your thing, and you're a swords person, you cannot understand medieval Renaissance swordsmanship without doing some polearm training. And this and the spear are the two best to use because they're the ones that most relate to what you do with the sword in an obvious fashion. I'm not gonna lie to you, like any good drug dealer, any pusher, he also is a gateway drug for all the rest of them. Pole arms are amazing because you can use all of your wrestling lessons, you can use all your dagger lessons, because sometimes you end up using this thing like this, right? Or like that. They're actually incredibly elegant once you get comfortable handling them. And all your swordsmanship applies too. It was just assumed through the 17th century that swordsmen are also polearms, right? So that's my pitch for polearm training. Coming back to our immediate class, I gave you a slightly faux version of the play because of time. The full play, if I can demonstrate it, is, right, is so, I've got this, right, this action here, thrust, I slip and cut, right? Now that's hitting the hand on this side. Now watch, he moves to parry that. I cavazione him right back with the original thrust. He parries that, he's taking me wide, he's gonna come in to get me, isn't he? Go ahead. It's the original cut I was planning on. Only because he lifted his hand. If he kept the hand low, I slice him right across the same arm I had you do and thrust him in the throat. And then when I fly out, I'm flying out in a way that just in case he's not done, I'm covered. So what I did is I took part one and went right to the last part. If he's pushing me this way and it's too quick for me to cut over, I just go with it and cut him. So now let's look at the way we did it. Okay. All right, so I come in, boom, and fire. Let's say he pushes that aside. Well, then I cavazione the other way, right? He parries it. Right? Not the play as written, all the parts. This is what I meant when I said plays are not technique. A mandrito squalembrato is a technique, right? A punta is a technique. Cavazione is a technique. Plays are combinations of tactical situations that are exemplars. As I just did that, it's not the order Marozzo wrote it. Is that Marozzo's Partizan?
Yes.
Correct. Not even just Bolognese Partizan. That is literally Marozzo's lesson, just rearranged and applied. That's the part that as a community, no matter what weapons we're doing, we need to work on more. We've gotten better at learning conditioning techniques, we've gotten better at studying plays, we've gotten better at kind of distilling principles, but then you gotta use those principles to create these things spontaneously. And that's the variations of the play. The masters can't give us any more than the dead. This is the challenge of the living part of this new tradition, is to then take these things, explore them, make them creative. I spent all weekend having James Riley rip my skull open talking about what is art. Something good should come from being trapped with James that long. James is one of my best friends in the world, to be clear. So, but this is what I'm getting at. This is what he's getting at. Okay? This is your goal. So yes, I actually cut a little Marozzo out and went right back into it. It didn't change the lesson I wanted to teach you, which is that asymmetrically, is how I should attack if I want to be aggressive, because it changes where I'm strong. I have a lefty here today, at least one. Someone raised their hand. Yeah, that's right. You're a lefty. Someone else said they're a lefty. Yeah, you're a lefty. So this is like a bread and butter thing, right? So switch your hands. Feel comfortable that way anyway. But remember, all of you have to train everything I showed you from both sides anyway. Okay? But this is sort of that lesson, is that, yeah, when people have opposite hands, the minority handedness is the one that has the advantage, because people don't expect to be strong on that side. That's essentially the lesson here. Okay? So fun fact, if you did this with swords, this is now where essentially he's telling you, if you're a lefty, here's how you handle this. Right? Make sense? Cool. All right. So I'll give you a little idea of what to do with this. I told you that Marozzo's polearm section is actually one, just think of it as one unit. Okay? You just work through and you learn all the parts of all the different polearms, and the whole thing done as an assalto. So let me just show you this, what I meant, because I don't have time. That's the section. With all the plays in order. I'll do that just as easily as I can. But, you see how each one ends in the next starting point? Which means that, guess what? Now you have a solo form. You don't get to train often. Bam, you have a solo form. And you know exactly what the partner application is. This is how the whole Bolognese art works. What would I do from here? I would start the build place, of which there's 5. Okay, that would cover, what if I want to open the cut? And a partisan can't open with a cut. Then I would use it like a bill. Okay, what if it's a halberd? I use it like a bill, unless I have the point forward. See what I mean? Okay, awesome. Any questions for me?
How many different polearms does he have in his
Okay,
series?
so all the masters have a slightly different repertoire of weapons. Morozzo, if you look at the picture, I forget which one he's holding, but he's got the Partizan and Rotella, and then he has one in hand, I think it's the Partizan. I think he's doing this. And he's got an array of weapons around him. Because he says that the bill, the halberd, and the poleaxe are the same weapon, for all practical purposes. So what he officially teaches is Partizan and Rotella, Partizan, Spiedo, bill, and then the long spear or pike. Lanciolto means long spear, that's what Manciolino calls it. Manciolino substitutes the bill for the halberd, has the same weapons. The anonymous Bolognese only has the poleaxe in armor. The plays are very much similar to Marozzo's bill plays, but because we're in armor, it has some hooking that has to be done, and it has more throws, and it has counters to the throws that nobody else has. So if you add him, you've got it all. You got every possible one. Okay? All right. Any other questions? And then we should probably run, so I don't give my host a nightmare.
He's already having one.
If y'all have loaner spears, put them on the table. Help us police the area for trash, because we're probably not coming back here.
Yeah.
And then we'll be out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.